Good afternoon, fellow investors. Today is the day that I reveal which three stocks have been most recommended by viewers of this channel. Now, basically, what will happen is when I hit 100 subscribers, I will have to buy one of these three stocks. In this video, I'll go over the three, and then I want you, the viewers, to comment below with which one you want me to buy. Now, whichever one gets the most comments is going to be the one that I have to actually spend my own money on. So you must choose, but please choose wisely. Now, on to the first company. The first company on the list is none other than Dow Inc. This is a chemicals company with a current PE ratio of 8.27 and a beefy starting yield of 5.39%. And their dividend history only indicates that they've paid the same amount consistently for the last several years. There have been no increases or decreases in the dividend from what I can see here. Regarding what the future of the dividend may look like, when we look at the last trailing 12 months of earnings per share and how much of that is being paid out in dividends, we can see that less than 50% of the EPS has been paid out in dividends. So that means that this dividend, by most standards, is quite well covered, most likely is not going away anytime soon, and if anything, does have some room to grow in the future. Now, with the undemanding multiple being, in the single digits here for PE, I would really like to see them focusing maybe a little bit more on buying back shares. The shares outstanding are technically down, but I really think that this is one of those areas where they could really be returning a lot more value to shareholders, potentially, depending on how other things in the company look and what other investments they might be able to make. But really, when you're trading at like an 8 or 9 PE, and you've got, really solid coverage on your dividend, you almost can't go wrong with some buyback. So looking forward to seeing maybe what they do there in the future. Now, the next company on the list is one I already own. This is Altria Group. This is the big tobacco company. They are the domestic half of the big Philip Morris breakup from back in the day. So they sell the Philip Morris brands of cigarettes like Marlboros domestically, while Philip Morris International does them internationally. They've made some questionable investments in the vaping space with their Juul Labs investment and have had to write off pretty much all of that as a loss. They're looking to try again with Enjoy, so hopefully they've learned their lessons there. We will see. PE ratio currently showing a 14.5 with a beefy dividend yield of 8%. They have been consistently growing their dividends for a very long time. Not all of the dividend increases have been anything to write home about, but I would say for the most part they have at least beaten the the CPI in inflation rate on average. So you're at least keeping up when you buy this and aren't necessarily losing your purchasing power if you're relying on dividend income with this company. So regarding how well covered their dividend is. So I mentioned the write-off with Juul Labs earlier. So their EPS is actually reflecting a number that's lower than the actual free cash flow that's coming into the company. So it looks like they're paying out over 100% of earnings, but in actuality, it's not as though they're having to basically like fund the dividend with share issuance or debt. In actuality, this dividend eats up about 80-ish% of the free cash flow coming into the business. So it is actually maybe not the what you would call the best covered dividend, but since they're a consumer staples company and their cash flow is very, very consistent, they can get away with a higher payout ratio. And generally speaking, they're pretty much okay. And with regards to what they do with the other 20% of the cash flow, they're looking at getting into another vaping venture with potentially acquiring Enjoy. And they also occasionally do like to buy back some shares, reduce that shares outstanding number, which when they're trading at low multiples, I like to see them doing, because every share they buy back is a share they don't have to pay out any dividends on, so that frees up that cash to be paid out to the remaining shareholders out there. So all in all, I'm always happy to get this company when it's not expensive. So we'll see what happens, and if you all vote for Altria. Next company is one that you may all have heard of, a little payment processing behemoth called Visa Incorporated. Now, Visa is a little bit different from the other two in that it trades at an undeniable premium PE of 30.41 with a dividend yield less than 1%. Now, with a company like Visa, you're looking at, okay, lately they've definitely been able to beef up the dividend in the last few years, which is nice. It wasn't always super consistent before recent years, but they definitely have the financial wherewithal to to be very consistent with growing the dividend now. When you look at the dividend coverage, their EPS is almost $7 per share, and they're only paying out $1.80 per share in dividends. So not even a third of their earnings going towards dividend payouts. Now, the thing with Visa is that it trades at a premium PE over 30, right? So it's kind of one of those things where it's, a little rich, right? But, they are focused on trying to return value to shareholders. Now, these buybacks, I would usually be a big fan of if the company was cheap, right? I would love to see the shares outstanding going down, down, down. But the fact of the matter is, if they're buying back shares at a 30 plus PE, they're basically buying expensive shares with shareholder money, right? So I would rather them, when they're this expensive, focus more on increasing the dividend or considering their high margins and high ROIC, seeing if they can invest back into the business. Now, that might be difficult because Visa is already so big. Now, granted, I'm sure they'll keep growing with the world economy as more people have use for payment processing and financial services. But the fact of the matter remains that buying back expensive shares is basically overpaying using shareholder money. So I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I understand why they might be having a hard time figuring out how else to use their money. Between the two things, buybacks and dividends, when they're this expensive, I guess I'd prefer them to focus on the dividend more so, and maybe let the shareholders figure out if they can use the money to buy something that's a little bit more reasonable or high return than these really, really expensive shares, right? Or if they want to do dividend reinvestment, let them do that. But make it the choice of the shareholders what to do with the money directly by just paying it out to them. So those are the three companies that I have to, buy one of them. So remember, comment which one you want me to have to buy below. Once I pass 100 subscribers, we'll do either a go live or a video of me doing the purchase, and I'll put my money where my mouth is and let you guys decide how I spend my money on this one. So take care, like, subscribe, and